Now that we have everything connected, we have the dual pre attached to the Mac via USB. So what I'll do now is go over to the capture settings in FuzzMeasure and choose the USB audio codec for the playback and recording device. I'll also make sure that channel 1 is selected as the record and playback channel. So what we're going to do now is set the levels for measurements. I'll hit the measure button with the input on the dual pre set fairly low, and we'll see what happens. FuzzMeasure is complaining that the impulse response is too weak, so we could either adjust the volume of the studio monitor or we could adjust the input level on the dual pre. In this case, the studio monitor is set to a fairly loud listening level, so we're going to adjust the dual pre's input level. I'm going to turn it up to about halfway here and try measuring again. You'll see it's still too weak. I'm going to take it up just a bit higher and measure again. Now we're picking up a signal. So I'm going to bring up the level meter in FuzzMeasure, and you'll see that it's green. When it's green, that means that it hasn't clipped yet. So what I'm going to do is turn up the input level all the way on the dual pre. You'll notice that the input meter turned red in the middle of this measurement. That means it clipped while it was measuring. So I'm going to back off the input volume a little bit until I can find a level where the meter doesn't turn red. You want to basically go as high as you can without getting clipping, because then you'll get a higher fidelity signal to work with for reverberation time measurements, which require a high signal noise ratio. So I'm going to turn up just a bit more here. So now it's peaking at about minus 10 dB, which is pretty good, but I'm going to go just a little higher. I clipped again, so back it off just a hair. I didn't reset my meter by clicking on it, so what you'll have to do is every time it turns red and clips, by clicking on the meter, you actually reset it so that you can test for clipping again. That looks pretty good. I'm peaking at about minus 2 dB or so. So what I'm going to do now is delete all these other measurements and try taking another measurement without touching any of the settings. If I hold the Shift key and select both of these measurements, you'll see they're virtually identical. That means that the device is behaving itself and the environment isn't changing too much. If you see lots of changes down in the low frequency area, I wouldn't be too concerned, because that's often due to the analysis window settings, which we'll cover at a later time. You really want to focus on the 100 Hertz and above range. If that's pretty solid between measurements, you're in good shape. Changes in the environment, such as moving the microphone or even just moving yourself within the room, can cause some changes throughout the frequency response. So you want to take care to make sure that everything's the same between different measurements. If you can fire a couple of measurements one after another without any large swings in the response, you're in pretty good shape to continue doing the measurements that you need to do. In the next video, I'm going to cover loopback measurements and using the automatic device correction to eliminate this delay that's being caused in the signal.